Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 72nd part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 72, Training Camp Invasion Part 1. The day started off like any other day. The students got up, had breakfast, and got ready for another day of training. Instead of training, the first thing they did was take part in a scavenger hunt. The 4 classes would be tasked with navigating the forest and finding specific waypoints, each one having a clue to lead them to the next waypoint. The first class to find all the waypoints wins. Simple enough. The 4 classes quickly went off in search of the waypoints, each class starting with a clue to a different waypoint. Meanwhile, the teachers sat back and relaxed back at the camp, with Ragdoll, who was Izumi's new most favorite member of the wild pussycats, keeping an eye on all of them thanks to her quirk. Eri and Kota were busy playing together. Mandalay found the two just adorable when they were together, whilst being watched by Inko and Shuichi. Of course, the main difficulty the teachers had that morning was trying to prevent Rin and Daidoji from fighting each other. So, how long do you think it'll take before the first class finds all 6 waypoints? Kana asked as she observed her class from a drone, made by May of course. We're probably looking at somewhere around 2 to 3 hours, Mandalay replied. We can find them in about half an hour, but that's because we know the area better, Pixie Bob added. As long as they don't take all day, they still have a lot of training to get through, Shota said. Don't worry. The clues are simple enough, Mandalay said. They should be able to find the waypoints easily enough. Meanwhile, with the students of CI-2A. I have no idea where we are, Yatsuki Tsuchibayashi, a short girl with brown hair and elf-like ears, said, looking at a map with a bewildered look on her face. Psycho sighed before she took a sip of Earl Grey tea, and took the map from her classmate. Let's see. The last waypoint was here, we need to go here. And we are, somewhere in between the 2-inch. Several of her sweat dropped. You have no idea where we are, don't you? Shifuyu Marinage, a short girl with fluffy pink hair tied into 2 large buns, said with a frown. Look, it's not my fault I have no idea where we are in this forest, Psycho said. There are no landmarks for us to use, apart from that massive mountain that we can't see half the time. And trees, thousands of trees. May I tempt you with a drone during these trying times? Her Hungarian classmate, a well-endowed girl with brown hair braided on both sides, blue eyes, and wearing an eye patch over her right eye, said, holding up a drone. Psycho blinked as she looked at her classmate with a baffled look on her face. How much random clutter do you have stuffed down that cleavage of yours, Aoki? Yes, Aoki replied calmly. Psycho sighed before she took the drone and turned it on, flying it up above the tree line so that they could get a bearing on where they were. Alright, I think I know where we are. We need to go that way, she said, pointing towards the way they needed to go. Are you sure about that? Rolls asked. Positive, Psycho replied. Now that I have a rough estimate on where we are, and know where we've been and where we need to go, I believe I know where we're going, she said as she headed off in the direction she had been pointing. Just don't let that overconfidence get the better of you, Rolls said as she and their classmates followed her. Remember that practical class we had on the first day? You threw us all around with the power of your mind, Psycho said, with an annoyed look on her face. You needed a lesson that brains are not everything, Rolls said. That you can plan everything to perfection, yet get overwhelmed by an unstoppable force. Yes, and you were that unstoppable force, Psycho said. Perhaps next time you want to teach someone a lesson, don't go full Darth Vader on them. Rolls chucked. What, he was the first unstoppable force that came to mind, she said before she suddenly screamed, clutching her head as she fell to the ground. Rolls! Psycho shouted as she crouched down next to her girlfriend, the rest of the class stopping in their tracks. Rolls, what's wrong? Rolls didn't respond, she just lay on the ground clutching her head muttering something in a language foreign to them all. A frightened look on her face. The entire class looked on in shock. This was new territory for them. Rolls was never scared of anything. They spent the entire month of October trying to scare her, and they all failed. She was just unfazed by anything. And yet, there she was, arguably the strongest student at CI Academy. And there she was, lying on the ground scared out of her mind of something. And it made them terrified. That there was something out there that Rolls was scared of, something that they could not see, something they could not feel. But Rolls could. The prodigy tendrils of a hungry mind, searching, seeking, hunting. It could only mean one thing. There was a heretic nearby, and it was hungry. Her classmates, however, could not sense what she could, so were unaware of the danger they were all in. What's wrong with her? Should we get a teacher? How? We don't have a way to contact them. And the only one who can contact them is down. Rolls, Psycho said as softly as she could. Please, what's wrong? Rolls didn't reply, she just lay there clutching her head muttering to herself. Suddenly her arm shot out, sending one of her classmates flying backwards. Just as a beam of energy shot straight through the air where her head previously was. Shit! Psycho cursed as she looked up, seeing 20 people wearing Hummerai's robes charging towards them. One of whom had a laser eye quirk, a black tongue poking out of his mouth. Hummerai's! They're dosed up on trigger! She shouted as she dragged Rolls behind a tree. Just what we need. Wacky cultists dosed up on trigger. Itoka cursed as she and the rest of the class took cover. She had read the news that Hummerai's was classified as a terrorist organization after it was discovered that they were planning to bomb several cities all over the world and kill millions. And, despite being a group that supposedly hates quirks, mass graves of quirkless men and women were found at all of their branches. How did they even find us? Saya asked. We can ask them that later. Itoka replied. Weapons! Aoki shouted as she started pulling out everyone's gear from between her bust and passed them to everyone else. Don't worry, I already gave 2B their weapons. You lot deal with these villains, I'll keep Rolls safe, Psycho said, laying Rolls against a tree. If only she knew what was wrong with her. They could really use her help for this. Her 18 classmates quickly engaged the trigger-enhanced Hummerai's members. They were all second years, with more than a year of training. They could easily deal with these guys. Some of them may have also used their quirks as well, but these guys seemed to be hell-bent on killing them, so if anyone asked, it was in self-defense, which was the honest truth. The girls weren't having much difficulty in fighting them off. Their actions were slow and cumbersome, so they were easy to dodge. Plus a few of them had quirks that were good for combat, such as being able to turn into a horse or hit things with perfect accuracy. Okay, so a few of them didn't have combat-oriented quirks, such as buoyant breasts or the ability to make the air around them cold, but they didn't allow them to stop them from being good fighters. The real danger came from these villains was just how strong their quirks were. They would only need to get a few hits in to take one of the students down. So avoiding their attacks became a priority. But, as the fight continued, they started to notice something odd. Shouldn't these guys be easier to take down? Saya asked after punching a villain in the face, noting not much of a reaction from him. These guys feel tougher. Plus their movements look odd. I don't know what you mean, Itoka said as she kicked a villain into a tree, knocking him out. These guys are small fry, even with their trigger-boosted queer, what the fuck? She gasped as the guy she supposedly knocked out grabbed her from behind. A ball bearing fired from Tamayo, a girl with long brown hair and holding a slingshot, sent the man recoiling backwards. But he recovered quickly, too quickly. It was the same with all the others. Each time they were hit by a blow that would either knock them out or leave them disorientated, they would always instantly recover from it. Stay down! Aoki shouted as she whacked a guy over the head with a frying pan. Hard enough to knock someone out. But the guy she hit didn't look at all affected by it. I said stay down. She shouted as he whacked him on the head again, a lot harder this time. He didn't go down. What is with these people? Saya asked as she kicked a guy in the crotch, to no visible effect. I know people on trigger get more aggressive, but it doesn't give them this level of pain resistance. Psycho nodded before she took a quick sip of tea and analyzed the situation. These villains were hyped up on trigger but weren't displaying any of the negative effects of injecting it. In fact, they weren't displaying anything. No emotions, no reactions, they weren't even speaking or grunting. She was suddenly brought out of her thinking by a shadow looming over her. She looked up just in time to see another Humorize member with massive clubs for arms standing over them, ready to crush them both. Sadly, there wasn't time for her to move out of the way. Rolls suddenly shot forward, some kind of gray energy blade in hand. She slashed the blade straight through the Humorize member, slicing him in half before his body exploded into a bloody mess. She then clicked her finger. The 19 other Humorize members suddenly collapsed, their necks snapped and broken. Snapping one's neck with telekinesis is an easy thing to do, much to Roll's shock. Her 18 classmates all turned and stared at her in shock, horrified by how easily their classmate was able to kill 20 people like that. "RR Rolls?" Psycho stuttered, horrified by what her girlfriend had just done. "Don't bother trying to knock them out. You can't," Rolls said shakily, her legs trembling. She wished she did not have to do that, not in front of so many of her friends, but she wasn't left with much of a choice. These people are beyond saving. They are husks. Soulless, mindless puppets. Everything that made them is gone, consumed by a thing that knows only hunger. A hunger that can only be saturated by souls. Psycho gulped, her face going pale. No, please no. Please don't let it be one of them, she thought, having a rough idea of what she was referring to. She knew Roll's secret, that she wasn't human. The fact she wore quirkless reds despite having the most OP quirk on the planet gave it away a bit. Plus there was that non-terrestrial tea incident from last year. So she knew a few things about her species. Including some of the things that give them nightmares, such as the horrifying, all-consuming heretics. Rolls would be acting like this unless one of those things was nearby. Puppets, Tamayo shivered, looking around at the dead Humorize members. "You mean, these people are already dead," Psycho said, a frown on her face. "Whoever is controlling them, whoever sent these people against us, did so after erasing their memories, leaving them nothing more but mindless bodies. They were all brain dead." The girls all gulped. They did not like the sound of that. Mindless puppets under someone else's control. It horrified them. "Are you sure about that?" Saya asked, her voice shaky and unsure. I mean, you're not exactly in the best mental state at the moment. And maybe you made a dash. Trust me on this." Roll said, turning to look at Saya with a terrified look in her eyes. "These people are already dead. Their minds and souls are gone, consumed by a thing that knows only hunger. Their bodies are nothing more but puppets, controlled by a monster. Defeating that thing won't release them, because there is nothing left to be freed. This is the only way. I'm sorry, but this is the only way." The girls all shivered but accepted what Rolls was saying. If she said that these people were mindless puppets under someone else's control, then they were mindless puppets under someone else's control. She would never lie about something like this, not when she looked that terrified and scared. Whatever was out there, whatever was responsible for this, whatever was scaring the crap out of Rolls, must be powerful. Too powerful for them to face alone. It was worse for Rolls because she knew exactly what was out there, what was seeking them, and how horrifying it was. Her species feared these things, just because of how wrong they were, and what they could do. All in the name of a being who tells them not to do it in the first place. She almost wished she was human, that way she wouldn't be able to feel that thing's presence. The other girls thankfully understood what she was saying. They knew that very little scared her, so if she suddenly started acting terrified, then there was something fucking horrifying out there. "What do we do then?" Aoki asked. "Find the others. Get them out of here. Before that thing devours them," Rolls replied, leaning back against a damaged tree, gray energy sword in hand. "I'll stay here. And distract them." What?" Psycho said, looking confused. "Why would you want to separate yourself from us?" "That thing, it's after me," Rolls explained. My quirk makes me a bit more palatable to that thing. My presence would only draw it to you. A human soul would barely even feed that thing. Hers, however, would be a full meal. Horrified looks appeared on the faces of her classmates. Rolls, you are not sacrificing yourself. Whatever that thing is, we can fight it. You can't fight that thing. Rolls said, her entire body shaking. No one can. It's just too powerful. I don't want to see you killed by that thing. I'm sorry, but there's no other way. Rolls, Psycho said to her girlfriend softly. Rolls turned towards her, only to have something blown into her face. A second later she collapsed, the blade she was holding deactivating, its hilt vanishing into dust. Psycho sighed. Thank the gods that cinnamon tea allows her to breathe out a knockout gas. Let's agree to ask questions about this later, she said as she picked up her girlfriend in a bridal carry. Right now we have to find the others, and find a way to survive whatever this thing that is attacking us. The other girls all nodded before they moved out. Aoki's drone was still up in the air, allowing them to find where everyone else was. Just look for the large plumes of smoke. It looked like hell out there. Parts of the forest were on fire, there were signs of battle everywhere, and trees were falling. It was easy to tell where everyone was, but telling which group was which was all but impossible. They decided to head towards the nearest group, as strength in numbers was their best chance of survival. Hopefully, the other classes were holding on. Stay the fuck down, dumbass. Katsuki fumed as he blasted the villain in the face, again. He had already blasted this particular villain 30 times already, and yet, each time the villain got back up and attacked him with the same ferocity as the first time. This was really starting to get on his nerves. This guy should be, down. He had to up the power of his explosions just to keep the fucker back. The man's skin was starting to burn in places, his hair singed, and he was pretty sure that the man's eyes were now useless. Yet he just kept fucking coming. Most of his classmates were having similar problems. Trying, almost begging the villains to just stay down and stop fighting. Yet no matter what they did, the villains just got right back up, unchanged. They weren't even weakened in the slightest. Pocket sand. Kanoko shouted as she threw dirt into one villain's eyes, only for said villain to be completely unaffected by it. He fired sharp fingernail projectiles from his hands at her. Pocket sand. Pocket sand. Pocket sand. How can you still see me? She shouted, her voice filled with panic and fear. Stay there. Yosetsu shouted as he welded a guy's arm to a tree, smirking slightly. Only for his smirk to disappear when the villain cut his own hand off, just so he could get into range to attack him again. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Please stop. Ibara begged, tears falling from her eyes as she restrained several villains with her vines, only for them to rip themselves out of them, ripping their own flesh apart in the process. For God's sake, please, just stop fighting. They don't even have regeneration quirks, Shoto said as she froze several villains, only for the ice to break apart instantly. I need someone to deal with whoever has telekinesis. None of them have telekinesis. Katsuki shouted as he blasted the same villain in the face. He would have gone off to fight someone else if this bastard wasn't trying to kill Kami, who was currently lying unconscious on the floor. She was his classmate, goddammit. Like hell he was going to allow some shitey villain to kill any of them. Kanoko! Can you grow mushrooms in their throats? Shurhai asked, trying to stop a villain from slicing his throat. I already have. Kanoko replied. They should be choking. I dare not grow any more in case I cause them to suffocate. How are they still walking? Setsuna asked, a horrified look on her face. They shouldn't be able to move anymore. What kind of drug are these guys on? I think it's Trigger, Jirota replied. These people, they're wearing Hummerai's robes. They were planning to bomb several cities with Trigger bombs. But Trigger makes your quirk stronger but also makes you go into an uncontrollable rampage, Juzo said, sinking several villains into the ground, only for them to dig themselves out, ripping parts of their flesh off in the process. I'm pretty sure Trigger does not give you unnatural endurance like these guys have. I don't think these guys are in control of their actions, Katsuki observed. What do you mean? Itsuka asked as she punched someone into the dirt with an enlarged fist. Their actions, they're sluggish, slow. Almost like a puppet, Katsuki explained. Someone else must be controlling them, forcing them to act and move even when they really shouldn't be able to. So, you're saying that these people are being controlled by another, Mashireo said, hitting a villain away with his tail. How else do you explain their ability to keep fighting despite suffering horrific injuries, Katsuki said. The concept sickened him, but how else could you explain this? No one, not even himself, could keep going like this after some of the things these villains had gone through. Someone was forcing them to keep going. God help us, Ibara faded, still begging the villains to just stop. How do we free these souls from this demon's control? Katsuki grunted as he smashed a villain's face against a tree. We find the fucker who's controlling them and beat him up, that's how. How? These guys are preventing us from leaving, Tetsu asked. And how are we supposed to find the bastard who's controlling them? Plus the more we fight, the more we hurt the people being controlled. Everything we do to disable them they just break out of. Itsuka shouted. How do we stop these people? I don't know, Katsuki said, really wishing that Izumi was around. No doubt she would know what to do. Damn it, what was he supposed to do? These were people being forced to attack them. How were they supposed to disable them if whoever was controlling them kept forcing them to get straight back up? They had to hold back their power to avoid hurting these people too much, but they had to go all out to stop these people from killing them. Whoever was behind this, he was going to explode to the moon. Hopefully, the teachers could find them soon because they were not going to be able to last long if this kept up. He could already feel his arms were close to breaking. Damn it, where the hell were the teachers? Fuck off and stay down. Kana shouted as she shot a bullet straight through a villain's knee, having already shot the guy's other knee out. Yet even with both knees gone, he was still approaching her. She had no idea where these Humorize members had come from, or how they had found out where the camp was. But right now she doesn't care much. Her students, her daughter. They were out there and she had to get to them. Unfortunately for her, these villains were in her way. And even then, there was another problem preventing her from hiding her kids. Ragdoll screamed as she lay on the ground, hands covering her bleeding eyes. One of the villains had sprayed something into her face. Mandalay and Pixie Bob were fighting hard to protect their fallen comrade, but it wasn't easy. There were 30 people attacking them and, whilst they were all slow and sluggish, they were all clearly on some kind of trigger as their quirks were powerful. Ragdoll wasn't the only one who was down, Blossom was down as well. They had no idea what happened, but just before they were attacked, she suddenly screamed and collapsed, blood dripping down her arms, legs, and out from behind her mask. No one was able to properly check on her since immediately afterwards they were attacked. Damn it, where did these people come from? Mandalay asked as she swiped at a villain. Only for another villain to fire several needles at her. She was only barely able to avoid them. Watch those needles. They're laced with trigger. Damn it! Pixie Bob cursed. Like they had enough problems to deal with already. They did not need a villain messing them up by injecting them with trigger. Mandalay, Kana shouted. Can you tell the students that they have authorization to use their quirks to defend themselves? I can't. Something is blocking it. Mandalay shouted. Each time I try my message gets blocked. I don't understand. This has never happened before. Damn it, why won't you just stay down? She cursed as a villain she thought she had knocked out, twice, got back up and attacked her. What was wrong with these people? They should not be able to stand after how hard they'd beaten some of them down. Just what did it take to knock them out? Good thing they still had some very hard hitters to back them up. Stay down. Daidoji shouted as she punched a villain into a tree, only for said villain to get moments later like nothing had happened. So, she then threw the tree at him. "Why won't these idiots stay down?" Rin asked, slicing at the tendons in a villain's legs, only to be shocked by the fact that they were still standing. "I don't think they can." Shota replied as he smashed a villain into the ground with his capture tape, only for that villain to get up like nothing had happened. "Look at how they move, it's sluggish, slow, uneven. Someone's controlling them like puppets. So no matter what we do to them, they'll just keep getting back up," Yamako cursed as she used a pair of dual Berettas loaded with rubber bullets to fend off the villains, the close quarters chaos preventing her from using her rifle. "Damn it!" Kana cursed. "So we're doing nothing but hurting these people? How are we supposed to disable them if whoever's controlling them keeps forcing them to get back up? We're going to kill these people if we keep this up." "Well, I can tell you that it's not dictator controlling these people," Daidoji remarked. "Those people still had their free will. These guys aren't reacting to anything and should have been released from his control by now. Either it's some other form of mind control, or someone's enslaved them with Dominator tech," Shota remarked. "Dominator tech?" Mandalay gasped. "I thought that was made up? A joke made by one of Paxton's minions just to scare people." "It was," Shota replied. "Perhaps someone took the idea and decided to make it real. So there's no stopping them unless we stop the guy controlling them." Rin cursed. "How are we supposed to do that?" Yamako asked as she kicked a villain away from her. "We don't have anyone or anything that can track something like that." "Durandal probably can," Kana said. "Or May, if she has a phone on her. Damn it, if only Ragdoll wasn't down. They'll be able to find where 1A is." "Shit, the students." Mandalay cursed. "They're still out there. Damn it, we can't help them if we're bogged down here." Pixie Bob grunted, summoning 2 earth beasts to help her fight. "We need to get the civilians and wounded out of here. Shuichi, get Inko and the children out of here." Tiger shouted, his body stretched around 3 different villains in such a way that, had it been anyone else, they would be unconscious by now. Yet they were still not only continuous but also trying to kill him. "There's an emergency panic room in the agency. Take them there," he said before he unwrapped himself from around the villains and threw them away. He then picked up Ragdoll and Blossom. "I'll take Ragdoll and Blossom there." "On it," Shuichi said, holding a pistol. He was so glad he asked Snipe to teach him how to shoot, even if Mandalay and Pixie Bob seemed to like the idea of turning him into a cowboy. "Inko, keep Eri and Kota close, and stay by me dash." "Fuck!" he cursed as 2 villains blocked their path. He quickly raised his pistol and fired at each of them twice. They didn't react to the hits at all. "Oh you, bastards!" Shuichi cursed as he fired off a few more rounds, again to no effect. They were hitting, but the people he was shooting at weren't reacting at all. Not even live rounds deterred them. Inko held Eri and Kota close, covering their ears as best she could. This was hell. She knew large-scale villain attacks were bad, but this was unimaginable. Why were these people still throwing themselves at the heroes? They were getting beaten to a pulp out there, and yet, despite some of them suffering horrific injuries, they still attacked them. And her daughter, her precious, fragile, Izumi. She was still out there, facing the same thing. Villains who were hyped up on trigger who just did not know when to stop. She prayed that her daughter was doing all right. Because this was unbearable to watch. Izumi yelped as she hit the ground hard, a taste of copper in her mouth. Surrounding her were her classmates, all down and badly beaten. Only Achiko was unharmed, but that was because she was lying on the ground, clutching her head and crying. Scared out of her mind. All because of that thing. When she got up this morning, she was expecting another normal day at camp. Get up, train her quirk some more, do some fun stuff, and ignore the existential dread from knowing that there was someone out there in the galaxy who was able to kill a fucking god. You know, normal camp stuff. She did not expect to have a monster show up and attack them. And oh god, was that thing horrifying. That thing, whatever it was, wasn't natural. It couldn't be. That thing may wear the body of a human, but underneath that shell was an abnormal monster. One she just wanted nothing more but to get away from. She shakily looked up at the thing attacking them. A tall and slim man with luminescent light blue skin, a shaved head of dark blue hair, and a goatee mustache. He wore a red robe, with a golden belt around it. Two glove-like prostheses covering his arms, gray trousers, and combat boots. And a mask made from human skin. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 73. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.